It's Julian, and today I'm back with another minimal deep tech video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Stussko style of minimal deep tech, you know, very jazzy and lush sounding, but still with that nice deep minimal tech groove. And yeah, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of new techniques in this video too. I figured out a bunch of stuff about making chord stabs and ideas that we're going to be talking about today. So yeah, as usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. So here's the project file. Here we are at 126 BPM, and the first thing up here are the stabs, which as you can see, there's 5 of them. And this is what those sound like. So I want to show you like how it all sounds together, just to show you like exactly how much stuff you're gonna have. You know, I think like with these types of tracks, a lot of tracks actually in this style do have like, you know, just maybe like a bass line and a nice groove and then like one chord stab or something like that. But in terms of like, if you really want to make something unique like this that has like its own flavor and is really lush and full like this, you need to have quite a few chord stabs in there, you know, bouncing off of each other. And you hear like they need to be solid, and there needs to be a groove happening between them. Like it can't just be like a little tiny like, you know, saw wave with a little bandpass filter and no effects. Like it has to be really good quality stabs. And like I said, they have to really have like their own groove on their own. So really what this comes down to is usually you would pick one to sort of be your main one. So like in our case, it's this first one, because you can see that's the one that plays not only the most notes, but the most frequently, because you can see like it's, yeah, just happening pretty much every bar here. And then once you have that one as your first one, then you just go and kind of fill in the little spaces with other ones, like how we have like all of these. And if you notice, it's not actually that crazy once we go to these, because if you notice, we basically just have 2 which are just playing like once at the start of every bar. Like we just get, or every 2 bars, like we get that one, then 2 bars later we get that one, and then 2 bars later we get that one, and then there's this pad down here, which I will explain there. So you can see these 2 are kind of following a similar pattern, and then if you look down here, you can see these 2 are following a similar pattern as well, where they just play at the end of every bar. So obviously it can seem a bit daunting if you're just like kind of starting from scratch, like, you know, how do I make 5 layers of chord stabs that are going to be cool on their own? But again, like, you know, if you kind of put it into groups like this and figure like where everything's going to fit ahead of time, it makes it a lot easier. And I'll show you the sounds on these. So for this first one, this is actually a new technique I haven't shown you guys before, where basically we're taking a sampled chord stab, but we're like really using the filter and automating it to make it like kind of move around and not just have it just be like, you know, a chord stab inside of a sampler. But there's actually like a lot going on in here with automation. So you can see we're just automating, we have an envelope on this bandpass filter here. And then we're automating the filter frequency just to move around like this. And yeah, it makes a huge difference. Like if you just have this sit in one place the whole time, you know, all of a sudden this doesn't work as well. But if it's moving and it's very dynamic like this, and it kind of like opens and closes, like it sort of evolves over the short course of time that you hear it, you know, then it's going to fit really well into the track. So that's what you want to try to do, is like, if you're taking a sampled stab like this, use the filter and the envelope, I mean, inside of Simpler, and then try automating that filter frequency, and just do like little stuff like this where you know, just like quickly, it just opens and closes. And then we just have a bit of reverb on this one. You can see it's a shorter one. You typically want like kind of a short, fast reverb like this. And then a bit of drum bus and a high pass filter. And that's really it for that one. Again, it's just about getting the sample, filtering it, and then making it a bit fatter and adding some effects. And then for these other ones, these are all made with synths. And I can just kind of show them to you quickly. I'll show you the chords that they're playing, which a lot of them are just playing this chord, which you can see is an A sharp minor 9 chord. And what I've done is, you can see, so we basically have, this would be like, if we're just kind of going from the bottom up, that's what this would look like. But then what I've done is I've taken the 9th and the minor 3rd and put those up an octave. So you get that kind of like dissonance up top there between those. You can hear, like, if I get rid of the 9th, it's not quite as cool of a chord without it. So we just have that, and you can see a few of these are playing that same MIDI. Even like this one here is still kind of playing, it's like, it's still a similar shape. So we're really just using that like kind of more jazzy minor 9th chord shape. I really recommend using that type of chord for this, you know, like you want a minor 9th, minor 7th, a major 9th, a major 7th, even like regular 7th chords. It's just you want something that's a bit more jazzy and has a little bit more flair to it, rather than just using like a blank minor chord. And then for this one, so this is just a saw wave, 2 saw waves actually, inside of analog, going into a bandpass filter which has an envelope on it. But then you can see we have a bit of short reverb on it and a bit of drum bus. So again, it's not just, you know, like a simple dry synth sound. Even though this one doesn't have as much automation, it's still like a lot of finesse to really get the right amount of space in there with the reverb and the fatness with the drum bus. And then there's this one, which is a very similar sound. You can see this one's just a square wave with a low pass filter. And yeah, very similar stuff. Short reverb, drum bus, high pass. Then we have like this one. So this one is actually made with FM synthesis. You can see we have a sine wave, and then a saw wave, and another sine wave. And you can see they're in different octaves. And actually, the saw wave's detuned a little bit. So here's without the filter. It's just this super like harmonically rich waveform. And then what we're doing is so we have the low pass filter, it has an envelope on it, and then we're also automating the filter frequency. So really similar to that first chord stab, you can hear, you just get that really nice like kind of juicy sounding stab. It also does this in the break. And then we just have a bit of chorus, and this one has a bit of echo and reverb. The echo comes in handy here because this one has a lot of space between it, so you can kind of let it ring out a bit more, and then that same short reverb like you've been seeing. A bit of drum bus to fatten it up, and the drum bus isn't just for like, you know, making it a super big fat synth. It also just helps to kind of, you know, make it sound a little bit more like textured and a little bit less just like a dry synth sound, and more so like an actual like sound that has character to it. And then we just have a high pass filter, and then this last stab, which is just playing the same A sharp minor 9 chord, and then these are just that same chord, but 5, like all the notes are just 5 notes up. And then this one's being made with actually a similar waveform. You can see we have 3 sine waves here, detuned a little bit, and then I have this one going into a bandpass filter where we're automating that bandpass frequency. It's the same deal as we've been showing you. You know, it's just kind of building up and going down there. This one is a very different sound from the other ones though. It's nice to have some that kind of like contrast each other, and it's not just gonna be like, you know, all that same kind of nice juicy low pass stab. And then we just have a bit of chorus, a bit of echo on this one because this one does ring out a bit more too, and then some short reverb, some drum bus to fatten it up and give it some texture, and then just a high pass filter, and woo, that is it for the stabs. So yeah, you can see again, it's not actually that hard, but you just have to go in and get creative with it. And you also notice in the break with these, I've laid these out a little bit different. So in the break, you know, we have these, but they're not going to be as like intense. Like obviously, you know, you just want like that one little do-do-do-do-do-do. You don't want it to just keep going every single time. So like, if you have your stabs like this and you're trying to make a break that isn't boring or empty, just try like really taking your time and like laying them out so that it's still something happening pretty much every second, but it's not so much energy like it is if we just take the part from the drop and copy it into the break. And yeah, then we have this pad. So this is kind of like the missing sixth chord stab. It's actually playing that same A sharp minor 9 chord that I showed you before. And then this one is just a much like longer and held out sort of chord. So what's happening is, you can see it's 2 saw waves, the same octave. They're going into a low pass filter which has an envelope on it. And that's opening up with that long attack, you can see. And then we also have the amplitude envelope, which is just kind of like building into the sound like that. And yeah, and then we just have a bit of vibrato. You can hear kind of giving it some character. And some chorus, giving it a bit of space, as well as a bit of reverb. This one has a longer reverb because, you know, it just kind of rings out into infinity. And then we just have a drum bus and a bit of a high pass filter. And then the next thing we have down here is this little vocal sample. So yeah, this is very simple. Obviously, you know, it's just a little vocal stab. The main thing is just the way it fits into the key, the way it fits into the rhythm, where we get like rather than just having it like, you know, obviously it would be kind of boring if you just drop it. You know, it's a lot cooler to have it kind of fit into that, like the upbeat there. So it's that, and then it's also the effects, because we have pretty long reverb and echo. Like if you look at these, it's a lot, and there's also the drum bus on there, which is letting those kind of like come through a lot more. It tends to make those a bit louder. So this just kind of creates this really nice atmosphere over top of the track. Like you hear it, and then you're still kind of getting it ringing out pretty much until the next one plays. But it just adds like a really nice sort of airy kind of thing over top of the track. Then we have the string from the break. So this is a pretty standard sort of string sound. You know, this is one of those like high strings like you hear in a lot of deep house. So I just have this actually playing D sharp, which is technically like, you can hear it plays really well with the pad and with the chord progression, or really just that one chord. And then the way that we're making the sound here is, yeah, so it's just a string sample, and we put it into a simpler, and then I'm using the loop. I have the start time and the length set like that. And then I'm using the fade so that it's just like an endless, it sounds like it's an endless loop of somebody playing a string, but it's just because it's being faded kind of back in over and over and over again. And then we just have some reverb, a bit of the Haas effect as well to spread the sound out. So we're just taking the sound and we're delaying the left ear. I believe it is. Yeah, the left ear is like 10.3 milliseconds, it says, forward. And then what happens is by pushing that ahead of the right ear, using this delay here, it creates this big stereo image because you're hearing the same sound at just slightly different times in each ear. So this makes a big difference with this because it's going to kind of put it in a different place in the mix. That's going to fit a lot better with everything else. If I turn this off, you can hear. It's subtle. But then when we bring it in, it does make a big difference because it just puts this in its own place. Also, you'll notice there's just a simple low-pass filter automation to make that kind of disappear. But then we just have a bit of saturation and the sidechain here, which is actually was for a different part. And then just an EQ8, and then I have this auto pan, which is what's creating that sort of like pulsing effect. And then we have this break pad. And this is playing the A sharp minor chord, the same one that I've been showing you here. So just this nice, like, big, jazzy, lush pad. This is just made using, you can see it's just 2 detuned saw waves. I have a low pass filter, which is just building up and up and up. And it also has a little bit of an LFO on there. And then you can see at the end it closes to kind of make it disappear really quick. And then we just have a bit of vibrato and unison to kind of give it some more character. And then finally just a chorus, an auto pan to make it kind of bounce up like that, and then a high pass filter, and that's it. You know, this is really just like a nice kind of chill background pad. That's gonna fill out the break nicely. Then as you can hear, we have the bass line, which sounds like this. So the main thing about this bass line is that it actually has a chord progression. It's a very simple one, but it goes A sharp, 5 notes up to D sharp. So it's A sharp minor and then D sharp minor. And that's essentially where this bass line is coming from. We're just using notes from the A sharp minor scale to fill it out. But it really just comes down to those two movements, just. And yeah, and then all these other notes just kind of come, you know, sort of as like a call and response even. You can hear, like, we have. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Like. And then it walks back down to the A sharp. Again, it's real straightforward. Like, if you look at this, like, this little thing over here, for example, it's literally just the notes from the scale. It's just the minor third, the fourth, the fifth, and then the root note, and the third again. You just have to get creative with using those. And, like, you know, the repetition, too. Like, instead of jumping these up and going to, like I could have technically gone, like, there. Instead of doing that, we're just going to use the notes that you've already heard and get that repetition. And just make it a lot kind of more memorable and catchier, and you can focus more on the groove that way. So for the sound with this one, it's just actually a pretty straightforward type of bass. I've shown you guys similar basses before where it's a saw wave and a square wave, just creating this really fat waveform. And then it's going into a low pass filter with an envelope. Now what makes this one interesting is the automation. The automation makes this a very dynamic bass line, and you can hear it. You know, there's like this little parts where it'll open up, and it just gives it a bit more kind of variation. It makes the bass feel a lot more exciting and a lot more alive too. You know, this is kind of like, you know, it's like you could either draw a picture or you could animate it. I feel like this is animating the picture, and it makes it a lot more immersive and just more interesting when you're hearing the track. Then we just have some drum bus to fatten that one up. I have it being sidechained to the kick. And then we just have an EQ to make a little bit of room for the kick. And then on the kick, so you can hear it's just this big fat 909 style kick. That's really what you want to go for here, is like a 909 kick that's just been processed a bit more to sound a bit fatter. And then we have the drum bus on that. You can hear just making it really full and really fat. And then on the group of the low end, you can see it's just a bit of saturation just to glue it together and make a bit more kind of like cohesion between the elements. And then we have the hi-hats. So you can see, we basically just have like this one, which is actually 2 layers. It's this hi-hat. And that shaker, which is layered with this. Just like a nice fat main open hi-hat. We have like some background ones, which just creates some more sort of movement and groove. And then we also have this tambourine. So there's sometimes, you know, when you still need to use like a nice just like loop tambourine like that to just really make it have like that live kind of more intense feel. And you also notice in the break we don't actually have any of like the main hi-hats. We're just kind of like letting it have some of them, and then they disappear, and then we come full force with all of them here. And on the group of hi-hats, it's just a little bit of saturation to glue those together. And then we have the percussion. So these you can hear, it's just a bunch of different little sounds basically just coming in. If you play them on their own, you don't even really like, you can't even really follow it, like what's happening. But if I just play it with this hi-hat. So you can hear, it's just like a bunch of different sounds, and the idea is that, you know, you put in a bunch of them that just play like one little hit there, one little hit there, and then over time, as you add like however many we have here, like I'm pretty sure this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers, you know, eventually you'll end up with like 8 or 9 or 10 layers, and it'll just be this really big, full kind of like nice percussion loop that's going to play in the background of your track. And you definitely want to make sure you use enough of these, and like that they're all kind of playing off of each other. You know, if you have too few, I don't think it's really going to sound as good or as full. It really needs to have like this many things to really just have the right groove. And then the key is just making sure that they all only play on their own, so you don't have a bunch of clashing hits. And you can also see in the break we have a few of those taken away, and then they come back for the drop. And then we just have the clap. I kept the clap on its own this time just to like be able to process it as one. You can hear it's just a nice punchy like 808 909 style clap going through some drum bus that also gets low pass at the end of the break. And then you can see we have this break kick, which just is like kind of building everything up. You can see I've like automated this high pass filter and it's got some drum bus. So that's just meant to be like for the break. And then it disappears, and we get the drop. And then the last thing down here is the crash, which is just like a little, you know, it's just this nice crash. I've taken it and I've got the full crash there, but then over here you can see we're just doing like it's just a quick little stab. That's what you want. I hear this in a lot of these tracks, and it sounds really cool to just have that little, and then you let the echo do the rest. And then this utility here is just to build it up at the end of the break there, so it goes like. And yeah, so there we are. So it was a bit of stuff for this video. I wanted to show you guys a bunch of new things and a bunch of stuff, not just about like how to make the actual sounds, but the arrangement of the track. You know, showing you the stuff about the break and like building things up and automation and all of that. And yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp for just $5. It's a really great way to support me, guys. You know, if you're enjoying these videos, I don't always make a whole lot just off of the videos alone, but with these sample packs and project files and stuff, it is a great way to support me, and it allows me to keep going so I can keep bringing you guys new videos, new techniques, and new stuff that isn't out there on the internet every single day. And plus, it's just $5, and you get all these great samples and presets and MIDI and the project. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for all the support, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.